Hey everybody, welcome. I am Carolyn Caldwell from Caldwell Evolution. I'm a certified professional organizer and productivity coach. And today I'd like to bring you my colleague and friend, Leigh Fowler. Leigh is a content strategist. She works with entrepreneurs who would like to get more visible and stand out from the crowd. She is the director and owner of Rise Media Design, Inc. And she is here today to provide you with her best tips, her favorite tips on how to be more productive working from a home office or just simply working from home. So welcome, Leigh.
Hey everyone, nice to be here. Thanks, Carolyn.
So glad that you could take the time to be with us. Now, is there anything in your bio that I missed that you wanted to add? You've done a lot of things. That was a pretty succinct bio.
Oh, yeah. Hey, so I've been an entrepreneur probably on and off since, I would say 1997, 1998. However, I've been working full time since 2013. I incorporated Rise Media and Design Incorporated. And I would say it's been about 2 decades, just over 2 decades of working in the marketing and publishing industry. So my thing is all about teaching entrepreneurs who want to stand out and get visible and make a bigger impact with content that converts, and to do it in a way that feels really good.
Wow, that's fantastic. And so you've been working from home and from a home office for, well, 7 years as owner of Rise Media Design, Inc. And sounded like a whole bunch of years before that too.
Absolutely. Yes. So my role before I launched the company was as a digital media director at a publishing house where I oversaw 400 email marketing campaigns annually. We launched, I think, 21 social media pages, 14 website overhauls, and saw some great return on building communities of over 80,000 in less than 2 years with some real concrete strategies.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So I'm all about productivity. We're going to talk about
right,
productivity right now.
Okay.
I'm all about productivity.
And that's why we're here today. We're all about productivity. So Leigh, what would be, you're an entrepreneur, you work from a home office. We can see the office behind you there. And you also have a son, a young son. So what would be your number one, your first tip that you'd like to offer to the viewers?
Yeah, absolutely. So my first strategy in working from home is to identify the Pareto principle of my workflow. And what that means ultimately is we're looking at the 80-20 rule. And I'm so sorry, I got some dings going on in the background here. We have the 80-20 rule, the law of the vital few. So I'm just going to read this to you. It states that for many events, roughly 80% of the effects come from 20% of the causes. And so what we want to do is examine our workday and really look at what are those activities that are going to matter most, because we have to make the most of our time, and that time is different for everyone. If they have kids at home, if it's like a 2-hour nap in the afternoon for someone that has a young one at home. So identifying what are those key components of your workday that actually get most of your results.
So in other words, using the numbers from the Pareto principle, what are the 20% activities that are actually going to get you the 80% results?
Yes, absolutely. So, at the end of the day, when you run a small business, you want to ultimately think about the revenue driving activities that are going to help you, the marketing that supports it, and the day-to-day administration. So you stay on top of things, but identifying within those categories, like what are those core moving pieces that are going to give you the best results for your time.
Okay, so number one then would be use the Pareto principle. 20% of activities get 80% of the results. Awesome. So what would be number two then?
Yeah, number two. So we often have an unconventional schedule when we work from home, and it's really based on your own commitment and discipline. And the key to that is identifying time slots that work for you. Like, when are you most productive? When are you having less distractions? How can you set boundaries around your time? So an unconventional schedule, especially if you have kids at home, my son does go to school from 9 to 3. However, there's been a lot of snow days, a lot of strike days. And so I have to be constantly adapting my schedule to make up for those days where I don't always have an empty house or home office. And so the unconventional schedule, so I look at sometimes getting up, I'm a morning person. and getting
Mhm.
up from 4:30 to 6:30 and getting those key moving pieces done in my day before everyone wakes up and it's quiet and I have a great internet signal, especially working from
Great.
home those days like snow days or even power outages. I still, can use my Wi-Fi on my phone, but everyone's trying to get on their internet on a snow day or a blackout day. So it's important to try and make sure you get on at the low times and when the internet isn't being used as much, especially
Right.
things like that.
Wow, good point. So don't be afraid to use an unconventional schedule to meet your household needs, your business needs, and your broadband, your bandwidth needs as well.
Right. Yeah. There is another rule that says, and I forget what it's called. It is another law or principle where things get done in the amount of time that you allow it to get done in. So if you give yourself 6 hours to do something, it'll get done in 6 hours. But if you give yourself 3 hours to do something, most likely you may be able to do that same thing in 3 hours if you're focused and have a plan. So I also want to think about like, yeah, like if you need to just cram things into 2 hours, like, you know, it's possible.
So I think the principle there is that work expands to fill the time available.
Yes,
Give
yes, I
yourself
love
10
know
minutes and
it.
be
Yeah.
surprised what you can get done if that's all the time you've got. Right?
Right, but that's being aware of your top priorities, your
Yeah.
Pareto principle, 80/20s, like what are those 20% that are going to push the 80, and then you can get right on that. So another piece, a lot of work from home entrepreneurs experience burnout. And so I went through the first few years, I never felt like I was done. I always felt like I was working. And one of my coaches, her name is Erica Frenzy, she was one of my mentors, and she shared with me, she's like, Leigh, why don't you identify 3 things you can do today? And that's your work day. Like when you finish those 3 things, then you're done for the day. And if you
Mhm.
choose to do the next 3, that's on you. But at least wipe your hands clean and feel successful that you finished and completed your goals for the day, because a lot of us feel like we're constantly spinning our wheels and working all the time. And I think it's important to actually stop your workday and recharge and re-energize, which probably brings us to my third tip.
Okay, yeah, go ahead. What's your third
Yeah.
tip then? Yeah.
So my third tip is really training your brain and owning your mental space.
Okay.
And that is huge. Like our minds are so powerful in helping us achieve things, but also in slowing us down and blocking us from getting what we want. And so in times of high stress, I definitely do a few things in my day I can share with you if you like today.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of those things, especially when I'm feeling a little overwhelmed, is I do a daily meditation. I listen for 10 minutes before I go to bed, an audio meditation that just helps me feel more secure and safe. Gets my mind good for before I go to bed. I do a lot of goal setting. So, before bed, when I wake up in the morning, goal setting is huge for me. Mantras and affirmations. And so really getting down to like key thoughts that you can use to change your brain, like train your brain into like just rising above the negative talk. It's a choice. It's about discipline, and we can't get down on ourselves. We are our own cheerleaders, and so if we can't train our brains to rise above, to be disciplined, to be optimistic, we can really be a detriment to ourselves. So that's my third tip is probably maybe the first one is to train your brain.
Train your brain. I love that. I just wrote some notes here, but I love the idea of, train your brain and be your own cheerleader. As you know, many of the clients that I work with in coaching are business owners, women entrepreneurs who are managing ADHD amongst everything else, but they are incredibly creative. And we talk about managing as opposed to trying to be more controlled and more disciplined. We talk about just managing it better. I love that so training and managing.
Yeah, yeah,
Training your
like
brain and managing your brain. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I do. I learned, I used to race on the Canadian national cycling team years ago, and to separate the champions from the pack, it's a mind game. And
Mm.
I think, one of the things I learned is if you work hard at overcoming those mental blocks, like you can get so far and get so much done. And yeah, it's absolutely one of those secret weapons that, train your brain.
Quote from Leigh Fowler: train your brain,
Yeah.
separate the champions from the pack.
Yes. Yes.
Fantastic. So Leigh, if we could just do a quick repeat for everybody, or a quick recap for everybody.
Yes.
So number one was use the Pareto principle.
Mhm.
20% of activity, get 80% and figure of the results, figure out what that 20% is.
Yeah. And a
Number
good way to do that too is to track your activities for the week and really look back at what does that for you, based on, the hours you spent on each of those activities, and lots of apps to track your time and do that. So that's a great way to kind of identify.
I love that, tracking your time. I often encourage people just to do it for a couple of days. It's a bit cumbersome to be doing it on an ongoing basis, although there are lots of professionals that do it, like, that
Mm.
bill by the minute, for example. But in the meantime, that leads perfectly into tip number two, which don't be afraid to use an unconventional schedule so that you can access that time where you are most productive and still meet your family and household obligations and get the bandwidth that you need, especially if your kids happen to be home working or homeschooling or at home for whatever reason. And then number three, manage your mental state and train your brain. I love it.
I love it too. It's so powerful. And, a lot of times when we don't know the known, like we have unknown situations in our business, often we feel out of control. And I think that when you can take control back and look at what can you control in your life, and how, and your brain and your thoughts are a big part of that, and how you see things, what you dedicate your time to, how much real estate you give to the stresses and the negative versus how much real estate you give to the positive. And so I think that's really important for people to hear, is that you can control your mind and how you
Absolutely.
see things. Yeah.
Leigh, that's fantastic. Thank you so much for offering up your tips and your wisdom and experience from so many years as an entrepreneur working from a home-based office. If people are entrepreneurs listening to this and would like to work with you for some content strategy and amplification, where and how would they find you?
Absolutely. So I have a ton of resources on my website at leighfowler.com/start. And you can download different trainings and quizzes to identify your visibility factor, how to create content that converts, and a few different other ways that you can get your marketing up leveled, amplified. And I also have a book called Ready to Amplify, and that's available on Amazon all over the world. So that's something as well, it's a 7-day pocket guide to amplify your tribe, your visibility and impact with content strategies that feel good.
Awesome. Leigh, I'm very, very grateful. Thank you so much for joining us here today. I really sincerely appreciate it.
Thank you.
And everybody who's watching, I'm very grateful for you showing up to join us today. Thank you very much for joining us. And if you like this content, then hang out and we'll provide some more. So thank you very much, everybody. And thank you, Leigh.
Thanks for having me, Carolyn.
You're very welcome.